The challenge is the implementation, and the challenge is that air pollution remains a rich person's problem. And that's the way it's being framed currently, right? Like, we have the luxury of doing something about it. We are the ones also causing it because of our vehicles and stuff, but we are not the ones who bear the brunt of it. I feel that putting the pressure on individuals to take steps is so unfair, because the penalty needs to be paid by the bigger, the corporates and stuff. And I think sometimes it's a bit of like passing the buck and like passing the blame, right? As someone who's worked in the civil society and the NGO space, I can definitely tell you that there's a lot of appetite in the government to want to learn and do more.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sustainably Curious. I'm Pramod, your host. And this is a format that we started recently where we speak to individuals who are in the climate space or otherwise and learn more about some of the sustainable habits that they've inculcated in their lives and their point of view on how can we all become slightly more mindful in the ways we live. I'm super excited today to have Navdha Malhotra here. And very interestingly, all three of us are Terra fellows. So Navdha and I were in the same cohort. Dhanashree was in the earlier cohort. This is the first time that we have all three people here, being Terra fellows. So yay Terra. So welcome, Navdha. And I think that the next 30 odd minutes or so, we'll have a free flowing conversation. Would love to start off with introductions. So Navdha, feel free to introduce yourself, and then Dhanashree. So Navdha,
Sure.
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and really excited to be here on a Saturday morning. And that's amazing. LFA represent. Go Terra do, as you said. So yeah, my name's Navdha. I actually have been working, I'd say, in the climate space since 2013. I work as an independent social impact consultant. So I've been in the social impact space, the development space for the last 15 years or so. And climate actually happened to me quite accidentally. I used to work on gender before that, and I was really passionate about just gender equity issues. But in 2013, I got a job with Greenpeace, and I moved to Bangalore for a couple of years. And that was my first foray into what is called climate campaigning. I think I'd like to believe that I was always quite considerate of the environment and sustainability in general, but I think really entering an organization that believes in fixing things, questioning the status quo, questioning what's going on in the world, what corporates are doing, what the government is doing. I think that was a really like eye-opening experience, because I don't think I knew how much is possibly going wrong, or what all wrong is being done at so many levels. And since then I've been working in the climate campaigning space, but now I do it slightly in a more strategic communications focused perspective. Apart from that, I also do some ceramics, and I run a digital museum as well. So 2 years ago I actually quit my full-time job, and that's when I did the LFA module, because even though I've been working in climate for so long, I think I needed to take a bit of a step back and really understand the science of it, which was my biggest motive for joining the course. And yeah, for the last 2.5, 3 years now, I've been working as an independent consultant, trying to do different things, but still operating in the climate and sustainability space.
Awesome. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, awesome, Navda. It's such a pleasure to meet you. So, my enthusiasm for climate began with how Bangalore is changing in the last so many years. It was a very different city growing up versus now. And the worry and the pain looking at what's happening around has been my pull towards doing something in the space. And I did the Terra LFA to understand more about the breadth of it and the science of what is really going on and what are the solutions and things like that.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, it's similar. I think, being a Bangalore kid and have seen it change quite a bit. Always wanted to do something, but life happens, and then we get busy with things, so never really took any action. Although personally, I think the awareness was always increasing around how to live more mindfully. And I think around the time that's what prompted me to take up LFA when transitioning between career. or like I was on a career break, and that prompted me to understand the space a bit more. And I think one of the assignments I'd written about something around this podcast, and then after like 3-4 months of procrastinating, finally started it as a small step towards learning by speaking to people and discovering new things. So that's sort of the background of how Sustainably Curious also started. um, but now that, like, I'm great to have you here. And um, coincidentally, we actually interviewed, I think in the last to last, or so it was episode 4, someone from Greenpeace. So Priya, she's currently at Greenpeace as well. So a small coincidence over here. But yeah, maybe kickstarting, I'd love to touch upon the social impact campaigns that you worked with. I think you've worked on a range of them, whether it's empowering women, EV, delivery campaign, or even like, Delhi pollution. What have been some lessons from the experience of, getting involved in these campaigns, or even getting people to take action in these?
Sure. I think maybe let's talk about Delhi because I am based in Delhi, and I think the pollution conversation is one that really, I think, breaks my heart because we started that campaign. I would say, like, in 2013 is when all of a sudden you started reading these media reports saying that Delhi has overtaken Beijing as the most polluted city in the world. And before that, we had studied air pollution in school. We knew it was a problem, but it was not something that was talked about in the way that it's talked about now. And I think when Greenpeace and obviously the organization I worked with called Purpose, they identified this as an entry point to actually tackle climate issues. So interestingly, air pollution is not seen as a climate change issue. It's seen more as a health crisis. But the causes of air pollution are climate issues, right?
Yeah.
So your emissions from traffic, emissions from industries, those are climate problems. But air pollution in itself is not looked at as a climate problem. So I think a lot of even philanthropic funder interest in stuff shifted to, okay, how do we tackle this? And I think I've been working on air pollution since then. I've done a bunch of work in Delhi under a campaign called Help Delhi Breathe. I've done some work actually in Bangalore as well under a campaign called Bengaluru Moving. And we've done some work in Mumbai. But I think in Delhi, I would say the biggest lesson that I have realized now is that we have not been able to shift the needle. I think that one of the earlier goals of the work that we did was establishing that air pollution is a problem, making air pollution an everyday conversation topic at dinner tables. I think we've been successful in doing that. Everyone recognizes that it's something that we're dealing with. But I think that we're also caught up in just daily lives and having to make it that it's not really prompted any, I would say, a shift in individual behavior or change. And I know that sounds slightly pessimistic, but that is a bit where I feel I am right now. I think there's a lot of apathy in general, and I mean, I can say that a lot of policy shifts have come about. Delhi has some fantastic policies on paper to tackle the problem. The challenge is the implementation, and the challenge is that air pollution remains a rich person's problem. And that's the way it's being framed currently, right? Like, we have the luxury of doing something about it. We are the ones also causing it because of our vehicles and stuff, but we are not the ones who bear the brunt of it. And unfortunately, while there are organizations doing fantastic work at engaging with the most vulnerable sector, segment, which is your street hawkers, your street vendors, your domestic help, your security guards who don't have an option, who have to be out on the roads even when the pollution is really bad. I think one learning, and this is something I'm still grappling with, is that we have not been able to identify what levers of change are required to actually make the shift happen, because they're not the ones who are causing it. They're the ones impacted by it, right? So what can you do there? I have a few examples of, policy shifts and even work that we've done, say with construction workers in Delhi. So I can talk about that a bit later. But I think currently I'm a bit pessimistic because I think while all of the surface level, top level stuff has happened, we still see solutions like smog towers being introduced. We still see cities talking about artificial rain, which are not actual solutions to the problem. Smog towers do not work. Artificial rain is not the solution. There are other things that need to happen. We need better public transport so that people stop feeling the need to drive their cars. We need the industries around cities, to be shut down. We need to reduce our reliance on coal and stuff. But I think there's a lot still that's needed. And I'm very aware how pessimistic I can sound about this.
No, but that's the reality. So, I think we should say it as it is. But I like how you framed it. I think, it is a rich person's problem. And that someone else is bearing the brunt of it, right? Like, and would love to know, like, what are some thoughts on how to solve this? Like, I think, like you said, the good thing is there are dinner table conversations happening, but there is intention. But then, like, how do you get to the next step of action?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was the core focus of, so Help Delhi Breathe is a campaign that's really close to my heart. I led it for a number of years, and it's one of those where I feel that we've tried a lot of tactics. We started off by engaging with mothers, mothers who live in urban cities, because we believe that the health angle, the health narrative with moms who care about their kids' health would work really well. So we actually incubated and mobilized groups of moms who have then become champions of air pollution, who have started going out to the government, speaking to political leaders, speaking to decision makers. And then the focus shifted to, I'd say, obviously youth, a lot of work with university students and school students on it, because kids are often the ones who go home and talk to their parents about things they learn at school, right? So that was another way of getting. It breaks my heart, but PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5, is something that every citizen now recognizes. In Delhi, like, you have little kids who know that the PM 2.5 today is bad. In one way, the campaign has been successful in making that happen, but I'm like, that's not something that a child should be thinking about, right? That shouldn't be a kid's reality, but it is. I think so I'll answer this in two ways, right? One is obviously things that you can do at an individual level, right? Definitely, thinking about the number of vehicles your family owns, right? I think really just being more conscious. I really don't want to be a campaigner, and I try very hard to not be one where I'm telling people to not do something, because I think that's, you lose your audience that way. You can't go into something by saying, hey, don't do this. But I think just being a bit more conscious about everyday decisions that we're making. So, like, there's a family of four, really need 2 or 3 vehicles. And that's something that we see in a lot of, urban middle class, upper middle class families. Whenever possible, use public transport. And I think, as the other perspective is, as citizens of a country and as citizens of a city, how much are we actually, like, what's the role that we are playing in the governance of the city? And by that, I mean, are we asking these tough questions? Are we aware of who our local leaders are? Are we aware of what our housing associations or our resident welfare associations need to do to tackle air pollution, right? Like, for example, now Delhi has said that I think in the next couple of days, there's going to be artificial rain that happens. Environmentalists have come out saying, why are we doing this in the monsoon when the rains will already kick in? Like, what data are you going to collect that way? But I feel like the people who have the power to actually make the change happen and ask some of these questions are not out there having this conversation. We're like, oh, this is going to happen, let's accept it. Right? So I think being a little bit more conscious about some of these things, paying attention to some of the norms and the rules that are being laid out. And I think, but the flip side of it is that even the government, even the decision makers in power, they don't make these processes participatory, right? They'll open up consultations. Every time a bill is announced or a bill is even being drafted, it's open for public consultations. But how many of us have actually gone for them? And I know it's a slightly tough ask, but I genuinely believe that until we are playing that role, like, we really have to think what's the role we are playing in the governance of our cities. And, both of you mentioned that for you, it started with the love for Bangalore, right? Like, you have seen the changing weather patterns. I mean, Delhi is still known for having 4 seasons. But unfortunately, the reality is that now during the summer, you can't step out because it's too hot. The monsoons means that in a little bit of rain, the traffic problems, the roads get completely logged, right? There's drainage problems everywhere. The 2-3 good months that we had for sitting on our terrace in the winter, it was in Delhi, there's this term barsati, which is the flats that are connected to the terrace. So
Yeah.
there's a whole thing of having barsati parties in the winter because that's the only time we could be outside. But even that's been taken away from us. We can't be outside in the winter anymore, right? So it's something that we're dealing with, and I think like I feel more and more strongly about it, and that's why I think I try to encourage people. I'm like, only you can go out and ask these questions. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me very sad actually, the way things have changed, and how you're describing Delhi. Bangalore, we've largely had similar weather through the year, right? It's always pleasant.
Yeah.
It's slightly hot, it's slightly cold, but
Yeah.
now we're seeing how different the weathers are. Like summers are getting really warm, where we are getting ACs where AC is never, like Bangalore doesn't need AC for the weather that we have, but now we are all getting ACs.
Yeah.
Winters are getting so cold, like we have multiple layers, and Bangalore has been quite pleasant throughout. So I can imagine coming from a place which has, again, like you're saying, four weathers, and now you're seeing it's difficult to enjoy the weathers. It is quite sad, and I understand, like, pessimism is the way that we're looking at things, but the reality is quite bleak. It's very sad. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think the air quality is an issue everywhere. Like, even in Bangalore, I would say like it's getting worse. And
Yeah.
there are, but yeah, like you rightly pointed, there is that individual level action, but also I think there needs to be policy level changes, or like different stakeholders need to come together. And I think Bangalore also suffers from like infrastructure problem, which is
Yeah.
never ending. As we speak, actually today, I think there is a protest going on to open the yellow metro line, which was supposed to open I think in 2022. And yeah, people are still waiting for it. So I think there are a lot of issues around that, because like traffic congestion only keeps increasing as these cities expand. And we are not the ones who suffer, I think, like, but we are letting others suffer, like, with not solving for this
Yeah.
problem, right?
Yeah.
um that said, yeah, like, would love to know, I think, from an individual perspective, like, yourself, ever since you've, I think Arundhati, in one of the episodes, she was in episode 5, she mentioned that once you know it, you can't unknow it. Like, once you become aware of these issues, you um, want to take action. So how have you, in like, what's your philosophy to life, or like living in general? What have been some things that you've incorporated?
Sure. So I think it sounds so strange to me because my entire livelihood depends on individuals waking up wanting to make a difference, right? Like I operate from that thing that people want to change, people want to be better, but at the same time, I feel that putting the pressure on individuals to take steps is so unfair because the penalty needs to be paid by the bigger, the corporates and stuff. And I think sometimes it's a bit of like passing the buck and like passing the blame, right? But having said that, I do think like, I mean, I completely feel that there are everyday practices that we all should be incorporating. We can talk a bit about the, stuff that I've been doing, but it does feel, I don't know, because I think as a campaigner, I'm always thinking that how is this laddering up to the longer term impact, right? But then I also know that if thousands of us do it, it will make a difference, right? So I think one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is that I don't eat meat anymore. I come from a fully carnivorous family. I grew up eating a lot of meat. A couple of years ago, I decided, and yes, while it is for ethical reasons, a lot of it is to actually do with the livestock industry, and it is for me, it's very much about the climate. So I always tell people, like, people always ask, like, do you not do it because you love animals? I'm like, yeah, that's one part of it, but I genuinely I'm doing it for environmental reasons. And I know that in a country like India, like red meat, all of that is still lower. So the developed, say developed, but the Western countries who consume more of red meat, they are like, obviously the emissions over there are a lot higher. But that's one of those things, that you said that once you know it, I can't unknow it. So that, and I think that I'm a wannabe vegan. It's something that I say I would love. I keep trying. I have incorporated smaller things because again, I think the dairy industry is, completely in it's not okay. It should be banned. We're not at all. Like it's a horrible, horrible industry. And in fact, sometimes I have conversations with folks who are like, actually eating meat is better than consuming dairy products because the dairy industry is far worse, than the meat industry. Both perspectives are valid, but I think that's one of the things that I've done. I think the other one is that I have tried to quit e-commerce portals. So I've been trying for the last couple of months to. I've removed my Blinkit, my Zepto, all of those services because honestly, I just think the sheer convenience of it has made us so lazy. One, we're not stepping out to the neighborhood shops and like buying the stuff anymore. But I think it's also just like you're not planning anymore for your
Yeah.
food, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just available. And this is one of the campaigns that I think I may have brought up in the LFA module as well, but it's one that's really, really close to my heart. So I did a bunch of work on electric vehicles, but it was actually called EV My Delivery. And the idea was that we engage with the young urban Indians in Delhi, Bangalore, and Bombay. And again, no shaming. You're not kind of telling people that, hey, don't use these services. Use them. But maybe when you're ordering, maybe when you're placing an order, if you're in the office, if you're at home, do a joint order, so that you're not getting 10 coffees delivered one after the other, but it's a joint order. Or if you live in a multi, like a lot of Indian families have multi households, do one bulk order because one thing that we're not realizing is that um, there is a lot of data available actually on the emissions caused by the two-wheelers that are used for these deliveries, right? I know a lot of them have transitioned to EVs, but even that electric vehicle, it's still coming from somewhere, right? The source is still coming from somewhere. And I think the other thing was the wastage. Like every time you order something, it's coming in. You have the thermocol packaging, you have bubble wrap layered, and you have so many bags. You open anyone's kitchen these days, there's like 20,000 blanket bags there, right? So I think that's one of the things. It's very hard. I will say that I still have one app installed. And unfortunately, they have also introduced a 15-minute service. Otherwise, they used to be like a regular, you place a bulk order and things used to get delivered once or twice a week. They've also introduced the 15-minute one, and I have started taking advantage of it, but I've removed all the others because at least I'm like, no, I don't need to live in a world where if I need a bag of chips right now, I need it right now. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, so I think those are two things. Apart from that, I mean, always carrying my bottle wherever I go. I think that's just the simplest thing that we can do, right? That's such a simple ask, and it sounds ridiculous to claim as one of the shifts I've made. But as I'm saying it, I'm like, even in my friend circle, if 8 of us started carrying a bottle, that's plastic bottles not bought at different places, right? And that's why I think like everything that we do does ladder up to a larger impact. So I think carrying my bottle everywhere. The other one is also, I think waste is something that I have a lot of opinions on, and I've tried really hard to do waste segregation at home and composting. Composting is still doable, but I realized that even though I was segregating my waste, it was not getting picked up in that manner. It was all being taken by the same people, and that thing that I'm still like navigating and trying to work with NGOs in Delhi to see how people can do it, because I don't think we have. I know Bangalore and Bombay, the housing associations are a lot better, and maybe in Gurgaon the condos and stuff are a lot better at it. But regular households, the trash just gets picked up in the same place. So even if you segregate it, it's all going to the same landfill. But yeah, those are a few of the things.
Yeah. So we have, of course, stopped or reduced getting online, Blinkit, etc. But whenever we do, we keep the bags aside, and when they come, the delivery guys come, we give it back to them. So that's
Oh,
been quite.
do they accept them?
Yeah, they do. Some people don't. They're like, "What do we do with this?" But most of them do accept. They take it back and hoping they're reused.
Reuse it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll start doing. I've not. Oh, that's a. See, now that's great, right? Because you're completing the loop and completing the circle. That's something that maybe I can do as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, waste segregation, I feel, is a lot better in Bangalore from what you've been explaining. Even at the local, like the individual houses, the BBMP folks insist on segregating waste
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
source. Uh, and I think Pramod will be able to tell better about maybe like what's going on at the BBMP level, at the governance level. But they are at least insisting that the waste should be segregated at source, be it whatever source, the smallest unit,
yeah.
and they're trying to do that. Though, so what happened was, I think a few years back when they started implementing this, they started demanding a small fee for the waste pickers to pick it and go. But at the individual house level, many people don't want to pay. They're like, we've never paid so far, so why do we have to pay now? And then they're like, okay, we'll just dispose it our way. We don't want you to come and pick it for us. So that is something that is happening that I'm aware of. So yeah.
That's so interesting because recently it started in my neighborhood as well, where we've had one person who's been the waste picker for ages and ages. Like he's the one that he goes to all the households. And I think the MCD kind of put out a ruling saying that now the MCD will come to your house and this is the amount you have to pay. Now people are already paying this guy, right? So they were like, one, why should we pay extra? Two, why should we let go of this guy? He's been in our lives for so long. Like he's been working in our houses for about 10, 15 years. And I think that's where the policies might be great. Like I'm like, great,
Yeah.
fantastic. Maybe the MCD coming to my house will actually mean waste segregation happening. But until I don't have that data, I'm not explained, I'm not told what that 300 rupees of payment is going to get me. You're going to lose people, right? Like if the government disseminated that information, amplified it properly, it
Yeah.
would get so much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, so recently I came across through a Terra WhatsApp only. There's an initiative here called Sustainable Sunday. So start volunteering there, and we basically meet at Kaban Park every Sunday and do a. It's called a plogging drive, but basically you just do a walk around it and collect the dry waste around, right? And part of that, like we were now thinking of scaling it up. So I went and met a few BBMP officials, and one thing I realized, or prior to this, my perception of BBMP was very, very different. Right? I'd be like, BBMP is not doing their job, and just Bangalore is going to the dumps and so on. But after speaking to them, I also and seeing them also take action on the streets, and like Kaban Park is very clean in general, but still like people still litter. It just seems to like take birth. The moment you clean, like 15 minutes later there's like same
Yeah.
amount of litter there. Right, so we can't always blame I think the organization, so they are also very stretched, I feel. So but I think where when I spoke to like a couple of officials, one of the things that they want to do is also spread awareness, right? So BBMP actually has started, I think, June 7th onwards in Bangalore, intensive drives every Saturday, and they want citizens to get involved, right? um, but like you mentioned, I think some of these things maybe can be marketed more, or like can be talked about in a better way, rather than citizens always feeling that, hey, no, they are at fault, and while they're actually resource crunched, and they're trying to do, maybe yes, they can improve. Obviously, I'm sure there are parts of which they've neglected, or like could have been doing better. But I think just stepping out from my house and getting involved a bit has spread my awareness of, okay, like maybe let's also understand their side and try and see where we can help, right? So I think that probably a more collaborative way to like solve is the only way, I feel. Like otherwise at an individual level we can only complain, or like tweet, or like things like that. But I think when you really go out there, I think it's realizing, okay, where do you need help? Let me, like we are willing to help. Let's see, let's come together, right? So
Yeah.
that's sort of the
I'm
approach.
I'm so glad you've said this because this is exactly what I mean, right? Like as citizens, are we even engaging with the governance process, right? Like I know that there are people living in Delhi, we don't know. I think Bangalore has wards, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
wrong, like
awards. Yeah, correct.
BBMP
Correct.
operates with
Yes.
wards.
Yeah.
Delhi is a bit different because because it's New Delhi, we have different corporations responsible for different things. So you have the municipal corporation, you have the South Delhi corporation, and then you have the New Delhi corporation, which are three different bodies.
Yeah.
And I have learned recently that where I live, it's a service lane of a main road. So one corporation is responsible for the main road. One corporation is responsible for the service lane I live on, even though
Oh, right.
it's right
Right
next door,
next.
right? Like
Yeah.
one is here, one is here. So some tree felling incident was happening, and
Yeah.
we were talking to the authorities, and that's where I realized that actually all three of them hold different mandates and they have different powers, because they were like, we appreciate you calling and telling us, but this is not my mandate. I can't do anything about it. And they are also stuck,
Yeah.
right? They want to do something, but they can't. And I think that's what I mean, that we need to be more engaged with this. We need to be having these conversations because, one, as you said, that's the only way we learn the challenges that they have. And two, as someone who's worked in the civil society and the NGO space, I can definitely tell you that there's a lot of appetite in the government to want to learn and do more. This thing of collaboration that you mentioned, right? They are always looking for ideas. They're always looking to get associated with campaigns. And I think they also realize that their marketing game needs to be up a lot. A lot of the engagement, the collaborations that I have done have been about amplifying the work that the government is doing. But yeah, I think again, like in the population that we have, it needs to be a lot more. But I'm so glad to hear you say that you went out and you spoke to BBMP officials, and your vlogging thing is very inspiring. Like kudos to you to go on a Sunday.
Yeah, no, and so I'm actually interviewing the founder next week to learn more about how she's thinking of scaling this. And but yeah, I discovered like Anjali had posted, or her friend had posted on Terra, and that's how I came about there. I'm going to meet the BBMP. Hopefully, like meet the BBMP CEO on Tuesday if I can. I'm going to their office, meeting some other official, and trying to see if we can do something pan Bangalore as well. With a lot of these, we're doing it, let's say the Kavan Park, and in July we're adding in few more locations. We take the permission from BBMP, and we coordinate with them, so that people who are going for this are also seeing that BBMP comes and collects the waste, and doing it in collaboration rather than saying that, okay, we'll only solve all the problems, which is, I don't think, going to happen. Like if we take on saying we'll solve all the problems, that's not even a right approach.
A lot of these actions have to be in collaboration with governments, and there is a lot that government is doing to solve problems, but the citizens are sort of not taking up their part of the duty and sort of adding to the issues, right? So totally agree with that.
Yeah, so Navdha, like, yeah, I think you founded Museum of Material Memory, if I got it correct. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I found that to be very fascinating. So tell a bit about what it is and how did the idea come about?
Complete pivot from
I know.
okay, it's sustainability
No,
in a
but I think
different
there is
way.
also something about memory of old items, and like definitely.
I was just going to come to that. In fact, one of the things that I was thinking before we started the conversation was that actually the culture of recycling is so inherent in Indian society. Like it's just something we've been doing for centuries. uh, Recycling, thrifting, giving away old clothes, giving away old utensils. And I think sometimes also we try to, this is just one last point I'll make, on the sustainability side of things. And it's related. I'll come to the museum through that. But we try too hard to ape the Western countries sometimes. And that's where we also lose the plot a little bit, right? Because we've had this in our culture. Kabadi walas are a thing that exists. Every weekend they come to our house and get paid for kabadi. What better system exists than that?
Yeah.
Right. And I think Indians generally, because of our religions and, the spiritual side of things, we are giving and, we are a giving society. We like to give back. People want to help each other. So I think like those things also need to be celebrated, but sometimes we get too caught up in wanting to do what the Western countries have done, and we try to shift these systems, and that doesn't need to be done. We need to come up with really hyper local solutions that work for this society.
Yeah.
And through that, I think, yes, the museum is about old objects. So, there is an element of people saving and storing personal heirlooms. But So it's a project that actually I run with one of my closest friends from school, and we co-founded it together in 2017. The idea for it was actually born from her personal work. So she's an author. Her name is Anchal, and she writes. She is uh, she's an oral historian, but she specifically works on the partition of India. And she was actually doing her master's thesis on objects that people carried with them across the border during the partition. And while she was doing that, the idea came that she could turn this into a book. And then when she was writing the book, when she was compiling the book, she and I were having a conversation one day, where she was like, I have so many people writing to me saying, can you come and visit us and can you document our family's history? I wish there was a way where people could do it themselves. And I work in strategic communications, but specifically I work with digital tech and innovation. So a lot of my work is actually how to use digital tools, all your social media, how to use those to mobilize and engage people. So I think somewhere both of those things kind of collided, came together, and I was like, we should start a digital platform where people just write on their own.
Nice.
So it's a crowdsourced museum. And initially, when we started, we went to our own networks, our own families. We are both North Indian, Punjabi families affected by the partition. My grandparents, were born across the border, so were hers. But the idea is to use objects as a nucleus to trace family histories. And the more mundane the objects, the better. So very often, we have things lying around in our house that carry a weight. They carry an entire person's life in it, and that's not being documented. So I'll give an example. I've written a couple of stories for the archive about my paternal grandfather. One of them being when he passed away, we found this great briefcase in his cupboard, and in that he used to store everything. And in that, I realized, that he was a freedom fighter. He'd actually spent some time in the prison. He had received documentation from the government for the same. He used to write entries at midnight of every year, like diary entries, not in a journal, but on loose sheets of paper. And those entries, surprisingly, are about his own life and the family life, but also about the country, because I think he was always into politics, and he was obviously in that era when so much, like, he saw the birth of a new independent India, right? So he's actually written entries like when Nehru's died, there's an entry about Nehru, in the year that, oh, this is what India has lost with this leader dying. So I think, like, using those objects, so there's letters, there's documents, there's certificates, there's medals, it can be anything and everything, where we're always looking for more everyday items. So if people have, we once wrote a story about, it's a South Asian archive, so it's not just India. We have stories from the South Asian countries. We have a story of a brass tumbler that someone actually took from India to Sri Lanka. So the great granddaughter has written about her great grandmom using that brass tumbler as a way of talking about why did she migrate from India to Sri Lanka and what was that experience like. So yeah, that's how the idea kind of, it came about from there. And I'm very excited to share that since I took this step of transitioning to consulting life, one of the reasons was actually to scale up the museum. So up until right now, it was running as a passion project. It was just something, both of us have day jobs, we do it on the side. But now we have registered it. It's a company. And the idea is to kind of go out and get funds so that we can actually scale it up and do more.
Amazing.
Thank you. If you guys have stuff, please write about it. We are always on the lookout for stories, and I don't have as many as I'd like from Karnataka, actually.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So that reminds me, actually, my grandfather's camera. I think it's still there in my parents' place, which I enjoyed as a kid. So I'll probably dig that out and
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
on
So
my
that's
mother's
the
side,
thing.
it's not working now, but yeah, like it's a one of those old cameras which it was very fascinating to just see that. So my father's dad, like my grandfather, so he was a scientist and a photographer. So but I need to discover more about his life around
And
that.
that thing, right? That's the thing. So very often we realize that people struggle to talk about their lives just like that. right? Like, especially, I think Indians, we don't write things. I think Bengalis are great at writing things, but a lot of it is oral history. We'll pass on story to story. So the idea is actually exactly what you said, that how do we use the object to have the younger generation going out and surfacing that life, you know? So you already mentioned that he was a scientist, like where, how, what was he working on, right? And that's through that, because I think lives of common everyday people. And just one thing I wanted to mention, that both of us are really, my co-founder and I, were very passionate about arts in general, but I think another goal was that museums and galleries, very often the story of people is told by someone else, right? So the idea here was that how do you empower people to tell their own story? And you know, when you go to a museum, you see something, it's lying in this glass thing, it's encased in something. You can't engage with it, there's no interaction. So that was the other reason of keeping it digital, because these are very personal objects. We don't want to take those objects away from people, but we want to create an experience where you really feel like, if there's a camera, how would it feel to touch it without touching it? We kind of wanted to break some of these boundaries and, you know, make memories more accessible in a way. But definitely, I'll follow up with you. I'm definitely going to write you an email from the museum about the camera.
No, that's amazing. And I think, Dhanashree has like the habit of keeping things for like, long time. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of stories as well.
Yeah, I'll have to look up some of them. I think I'm currently able to recall one of the harmoniums that's there at home, and it's been there for a very long time. I don't know how it has come to our house. So
I'd love
I'll be
to help
curious
you
to.
figure out why. Yeah, wow, this is amazing, guys. I got a musical object and a camera. That's amazing.
I'll check with the previous guest as well. Like, she mentioned that in her in-laws' place, they never throw any waste at all. Like, and they preserve things like even shirts and toys from like their grandfather's generation as well. So I'll check with her if she wants to write a story as well for this.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. So the other thing that I want to check was I did read that you're into clay and pottery work as well. So, and being in climate space, like we started off, there's a lot of pessimism around it. So, is like the work with clay and pottery more that gives you calm and how do you cope with all the pessimism that's there in climate? Like, what keeps you going without feeling like, the world is ending?
To say that it's conversations like this that keep me going, and I'm not just saying it. So I think, like, you know, as I said, every morning I do have this general feeling that nothing is going to change. But then I'll have one conversation with someone, you know, you meet like one young child who cares about something, or the cutest is actually every morning I go to the park with my dog and my mom comes along with us. And it's a little routine that we have where he is obsessed with going for the walk with her. She is obsessed with him. So it can become a whole thing. And my mom will take pictures of every broken thing in the park. You know, whether there is illegal tree felling happening because people often cut, the trees will fall during storms and all. You can't take the wood out, but a lot of people obviously do because they need the wood, you know, for cooking and stuff, right? She'll take pictures of like broken benches, and she, I don't know how, has figured out all the numbers to send them to. She has the helpline, she knows the MLA in the neighborhood, and she'll just be like, this bench is broken, it needs to be fixed. And I think, like, when I see that, it's renewed optimism, right? Because you see someone at that age still caring, still doing her bit, and she'll keep telling me, you know, for me the work is work. Like my mom's also in the development sector. She's been a social worker her entire life. But I think, like, when you see individuals act like actions like that, it really gives me hope that, okay, yeah, there is something. And they respond to her and they tell her that, oh, thank you, madam, bench fix ho gaya, or thank you, madam, they've repaired the gate, right? But because it's what you were saying earlier, Dhanashree, that they are also looking for data. It's not just collaboration. They also need to know why things are broken because they can't go and check everything.
Correct.
So that's the role that we can play. But I think coming back, I did want to say that I think like individual actions are the things that give me renewed optimism and hope. Play is one of those. It's been a journey. I've been doing it for a really long time. It's been a very on-off journey. I keep taking breaks, and I would say play is a medium I keep coming back to. Every time I feel that my creativity has hit the level, like the surface. And when I feel like that, then that's when I go back to clay. So yes, definitely clay is an extremely therapeutic medium. But I tell everyone, actually, more than clay, it's just doing something with your hands, because we are only on our phones and our laptops.
Yeah.
Just sitting and working with your hands is a whole different joy. Yeah, but every time I feel like my creativity is plateaued, even in my campaigning, even in the work that I do, is when I'm like, oh, need to spend some time with clay and then some idea will emerge. And yeah, I think it's just one of those, it's a very special relationship. I've been doing it since 2005, but with a lot of breaks for
Oh.
education, career, life in general. But keep coming back to it. It's a very, I recommend it to everyone. I always tell people that even if you can just buy a little bit of clay, just keep it just doing. It's the clay is actually the closest we can get to the ground, to the source of life is something that I really believe in because it's the most natural. It's mitti. It is like the most natural form of uh, most accessible form of nature that we have. And I think just kind of even just sitting and playing with it is very, very therapeutic. I've
So
never thought about it in the way you've said it, of like, oh, is clay giving me optimism? I'm going to
yeah.
pay attention to that now.
So do you have a setup at home or like for making?
I have a studio that I go to. I work there
Okay.
for my glazing and my firing, but I have a wheel at home.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I do make things at
Awesome.
home. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I see a picture of the dog in the background. So
Yes,
as
yes.
as a we are all pet parents. So as pet parents, like what how has it made you more conscious in like what changes or habits in your day-to-day life?
Wow. I was a totally lazy person before I tell anyone ever tells me, oh, I need a routine, like get a dog. The dog just forces you to get a routine whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just waking up early, going to bed early is the biggest thing because even if I'm not awake, I will be woken up,
Yeah.
at 6 a.m. with him staring at me going, hi, it's time for a walk now. And yeah, I think that's such a personal, sweet. I've had animals my entire life. He's my first, my own dog, not a family dog. Like he's mine. Um, yeah, I think just routine. I'm a better person. Feel like I'm brighter, more physical movement because of him. More steps in the day because of him, more curiosity, I think, as well, because you see them observing things and it's just like, wow, like they are so, like, I've seen your dogs on the screen on calls and all, right? But they find so much joy in the everyday routine, no? Like the
Yeah.
most same everyday food, everyday toys.
Yeah.
I'm like, but they're still curious about it. Every evening he'll go pick up one toy, and I think that's one of the things I'm really like trying to imbibe from him that you have joy and beauty around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dhanashree, yeah. What are the
Yeah.
stories?
So the way they give us joy and they help us learn uh, the extraordinary things or extraordinary moments in the ordinary things. I think that's been a, a super thing. And yeah, the routine also, so I'm doing this program called transactional analysis. It's a program on psychology and analysis of communication. So one of the concepts in that is time structuring. So when you said they help us put the routine and help us brighten up our day because of their routine, right? And like they come wake us up in the mornings. If we are lazy, they just help us get out of the bed and let's just get out for a walk. All of that is great for the planet, our mental health, and the planet as well. If all of us have a basic routine which we are really enjoying, I don't think we will indulge in harming the planet in that sense.
No, I want to ask, it's called time structure.
Time structuring, it's a part
Okay.
of the bigger psychological body called transactional analysis. Time structuring is a part of it. It's uh, uh, Byrne was the guy who sort of formulated ta transactional. He says we are all hungry for stimulation basically, and stimulus hunger and time structuring. If we have a good basic structure of our time, we are that much more healthy mentally and emotionally. And he says time structuring also helps us, like it helps us survive. If it is not there, we almost shrivel and die. So yeah, the dogs definitely help us,
Wow. I'm going to read
get
up
us
on
out of
this.
the
This
bed.
sounds fascinating. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying, Pramod.
I know. I was saying that they've also taught us minimalism. Like
Yeah.
they earlier, I think we'd have so much frivolous stuff. Although I really like some of the toys which I had, like Star Wars and all those things. But I think one fine day they just like wiped out all of them, and then
You don't
now
need them,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So they're very clear in like you don't need all of this fancy stuff. We can just enjoy with what we have and
Priorities. I just need a surface to sleep on. That's
correct,
all.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
No, but this has been wonderful, Navda. Really enjoyed the free flowing conversation. But thanks so much.
Same.
And yeah, we'll circle back on the stories from my side for the memories.
Yes,
And
please. And thank you. This has been one just so interesting. I feel like I've come to Bangalore and had a coffee with you guys. I
yeah,
will
yeah, yeah,
definitely do that when I'm visiting the city next. But
Yes.
this has
definitely.
been great. Always lovely to meet like-minded and have these conversations with folks. So thank you for having me. It's been very enjoyable.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
coming. It's
you.
been great.
Thanks.
See you
Thanks so much.
soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.